Svein, you've been around this debate for a very long time. I gather you were a surveyor when you started your career in the mid-70s. When you look at e-mobility, and perhaps give us a perspective from Scandinavia as well, if you could, where do you stand on e-mobility? And is it worth it? Are we going to get there in time?
We can get there in time if we want, because we have the solutions, but we don't take all these solutions into use. But let me just say that I'm coming from a well-developed country. But even when I was a boy, the transport I had was a horse and a bike. And we got our first car when I was 13 years old. And now the transition has gone so fast that if you talk about cars and EVs, now 90% of all new cars that are sold in Norway are EVs actually. And that is not because we Norwegians are more environmentally conscious or friendly than other people in the world, but it is because of incentives that has been introduced by our government, and that makes it attractive to buy EVs. And if it is attractive to buy them, and if we have them, everybody will buy them. So the main challenge we have actually is that, as an example, there was a talk in the previous session about funding. It is so now that we are subsidizing fossil fuel with $11 million per minute. And this is done by politicians because they are doing the subsidizing. If that was swapped around to favor EVs and renewable energy, the shift would go very fast. As of now, and let us be honest, we are not going to stop on 1.5 centigrades, as it was said. It's still the goal, but you don't find scientists that say this is possible anymore. But we can stop at 2 degrees, and that is extremely important. More action is needed. And solutions are there, technology is there, and knowledge is there. We need some kind of more political action.
Okay, and turning to you, Kasper, you've heard Mahua and Svein's take on all of this. You're sitting in the southeast of England, which has a ton of charging stations, but the further you go out of London, the fewer charging stations. So how do you see it from a UK perspective? How do you see this playing out? And are you bullish on EVs?
Yeah, I mean, certainly within the UK, I'd say I'm bullish on EVs. I mean, Europe's a slightly different situation in the sense that the European government has put in some quite big penalties to the automakers should they not reach fleet emissions targets. So, in the case of Europe, in many cases, the consumer is being dictated what product they should buy. But, luckily for the EV market, actually, it's not demand constrained. It's constrained by other factors. As you say, charging infrastructure remains a problem. In the south of the UK, it's pretty available, but it's still not widely available unless you have, it makes life a lot easier if you have a property where you have a driveway or otherwise to install a charger yourself. Not everyone has that option. And certainly in city centres or areas outside of the country, it's harder to access. Now, as those EV sales increase in the UK or elsewhere, and demand is there, you will start to see commercial enterprises install those chargers. So that is something that's happening across the UK. Oil companies are installing or starting to install only electric forecourts to charge. And you're also seeing other enterprises set up charging infrastructure outside of towns or nearby, or of course on sort of motorways and highways. So that will in some ways be answered by demand from the consumer. Companies will be there to serve that, and there'll be a business model which allows for it. And then of course, the other side is actually ensuring that the consumer has access to those EVs. And the problem, as I said, is not demand, it's actually the other side, it's supply. So supply of raw materials, supply of things like lithium or cobalt or nickel in the right form needed for batteries, and also then fundamentally capacity to convert those minerals into chemicals and lithium-ion batteries and into EVs. So I think the charging infrastructure is a problem at the moment, but that's being improved upon, and there's a number of different solutions to that. I think, bullish on EVs, but we are potentially looking at a situation where there could be some constraints on supply for growth targets to be met.
Okay.